Let's say you just had a big argument with your partner and you're wondering, what can we do to come together and actually work on this as a team, as opposed to feeling like opponents? And I have 3 tips that I think will really help you develop a stronger communication with your relationship, and you'll both come away from the argument feeling like you both have your needs met. So let's just jump right in. Number 1 is pick a time to discuss this when you are both in a calm space and you're distraction free. So you don't want to try to repair this conflict after your partner just got home, or maybe you're both really tired. You want to pick a time when you can both be very present with each other and hear what each other needs in the moment. So if you're not sure what this looks like, you can always ask your partner and say, hey, I felt pretty disconnected to you when we were having that argument, and I would love to chat and find a way to resolve this. When would be a good time for you where we can both sit down and be present and discuss this? And then after you've picked a time to talk about it, I think the first thing you should do, because you're the one initiating this conversation, is to apologize for anything that you might have said or did that upset your partner. This is really the first step to repair, admitting when we're wrong. And I know that can be so difficult for our egos, because our egos want to keep us safe and they want to say, oh, it was the other person said this, the other person hurt me. But we want to first acknowledge if we maybe hurt our partner. And so let's think of a scenario here. Maybe the conflict was about the fact that your partner has been taking on the majority of the chores lately, because maybe you've been staying at work late, you have to get a project done. And so they are really feeling the stress of having to do all the chores by themselves. And so maybe they brought it up and they had said, hey, I feel alone in this. I feel like I am taking on all the responsibility around the house and I'm feeling stressed, and I feel like I really want your support. I'm not really seeing you jumping in here. And then you reply with a retort, hey, I have to work at the office late. It's not my fault. Why are you getting on my back? And then, of course, it just escalates from there. So let's say that's the scenario. So then you would start by saying, hey, I know that you were bringing up this conversation about the chores, and this is important to you. And I responded with a retort because I was feeling hurt. I was feeling a little bit like it sounded like I wasn't really doing my part around the house. And that was hurtful to me. But at the same time, I didn't need to reply in the way I did. And I'm sorry for doing so. And then, of course, it's important that your partner also owns their own responsibility in the conflict as well. If they reply with, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you felt bad by the way I framed it. I know the way that I said it made it sound like I was attacking, or maybe I was putting you in the wrong and saying you're not doing enough. I didn't mean for it to sound like that. I just wanted to be heard and supported so that I'm not taking on all the chores. Something like that. It's really nice if your partner can also acknowledge where maybe they went wrong too. And then the next step is to come up with a solution that works for both of you. And what you want to do first is you want to really listen to your partner, open up the floor to them and ask them, what can I do to help you with the chores? How can we feel more like a team in this situation? And then if your partner says, well, it would be really great if you could help out with chores when you get home, let's say that doesn't work for you, but you still want to honor your partner's request. You could say, well, I see that's important to you, and when I get home, sometimes I'm tired and sometimes I want to decompress. I want to do some writing or I want to watch my show. You could say, but a compromise would be I could start getting up a little bit earlier in the morning and tackling the chores before I go to work. And then see what your partner says. I'm sure they would really appreciate it, and I'm sure they would go for it, because usually in these kind of situations, it's not about the exact time you get it done. They just want to feel that you are supporting them whatever way that looks like. And so if you can come up with a really good compromise like that, then that's all they need, because the bottom line is they just want to feel that they're in this with you as a team. And then the last part of this is, let's say that your partner said, hey, I love that compromise. Let's work with that plan. Let's see how it goes. Then the next step would be, let's say that this plan has been in place for a couple weeks. Then you would carve out time with your partner to sit down and ask them about how they feel about it. You can contribute your thoughts about how you're feeling about the plan. And then this is really setting you both up for success, because you could guess all day long how each other feels about the changes that have been made. But until you sit down and actually ask and hear their candid thoughts, you won't know for sure if you're both getting your needs met or not. And I think kind of a bonus tip as well is just know that your needs are just as important as your partner's. Because there could be times where it's you who's bringing up something where maybe you two aren't really working as a team. Maybe it's you that's taking on all the chores and your partner has been busy with work and they just haven't been able to get to it. It is completely okay for you to voice your opinion. But I think a good way, a respectful way to go about this is to use I statements. So if you're going to bring up a topic about the chores, let's say, then you would say, I noticed that I've been taking on a lot of the chores lately and it's been feeling a little bit draining. I would love to work together with you to share the chores, and then I can feel more supported and we can feel more like a team. You can just keep it really simple. There's no blaming and there's no trying to tell your partner what to do. You're just making a request, and then you're going to see how your partner responds to that. Because I think in a healthy relationship, your partner would say, oh gosh, I didn't realize that that was stressing you out. They're not going to make it all about them. Because what I've seen in relationships and what I've seen in some of my own relationships is when you bring up something, maybe a sensitive topic or something that maybe it sounds like your partner hasn't been pulling their own weight, they could jump to getting defensive and feeling like this is about them and that what they're not doing right. But if you're on the receiving end of this, your partner is coming to something with you, like again, the chores example, they just want your support with chores. Remember that this is not about you doing something wrong. This is simply about you two coming together, having a collaborative kind of relationship where you're both thinking about what can we do to get our needs met and what can we do to, again, feel like a team, feel like we're in this together. We are not against each other in any way, but also know that in relationships, sometimes there's going to be differences in the way that you handle things. It could be that one person tackles the chores, that's something that's on their mind, it's really important to them. And maybe the other person, they just don't really think about it as much. The chores don't feel like they're at the forefront of their mind. At the same time, though, they can compromise and realize, hey, even though the chores don't feel super important to me, I see that it's very important to my partner. And so I want to make some changes here to make my partner feel more comfortable. Now we can feel more connected to each other because we're both contributing. And if you can repair in that healthy way, any other argument that comes up after this is going to feel so much easier. So I hope this advice was helpful. And if you've used any of these methods to repair conflict in your relationships, then I would love to hear about it in the comments. So again, thank you for being here today. I appreciate you all. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.